Okay, I think we're recording.
Yeah.
Test, test.
Hello.
And welcome to the first test of Cinemacast.
Cinemacast, the movie podcast, opinion podcast for you.
You know, actually, this actually does sound pretty professional.
I know.
You know, the name, it has a good ring to it, like talking about, like, welcome to Cinemacast.
I know. It sounds like something that already should have existed.
Definitely. I'm glad we came up with that name.
Uh-huh.
And also because, like, Cinemacast sounds funny because, like, a movie cast are the people who are in a movie.
Yeah.
Cinemacast is just a ripoff of podcast about movies.
Yeah, and I want to be careful that it doesn't sound too much like Comcast.
Cinemacast?
Yeah, because we'll get a bad rep right off the bat.
Well, yeah, people hate Comcast. That's because they have poor customer service.
Yeah.
I'm assuming we'll have good customer service because we won't have listener feedback for months.
Yeah. I don't think, yeah. If you're listening to this, you're our best friend. You're the only one who is listening. You're my mom or dad.
Or your friends who just honestly don't know what podcasts are, so you're probably listening to this to understand why are they recording their voices and not some YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So, welcome to Cinemacast. Do you think we should do like a quick run through on why we came up with this, or how we came up with this, and then why we started it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Want me to go first? You first.
I mean, I was going to say ladies first, but I realized, there's probably going to be multiple genders listening to this, so probably...
Anyone first.
It was your offer to me, so I'll let you start,
All
and then
right.
I'll do commentary.
I'm sick and tired of listening to other people's stuff. I just want to share my own opinion, whether it's valuable or not to you. That's fine. I'm just excited to share what I think about movies. And it's fun. You know, everyone needs a hobby, so...
So who are you? I realize we probably need
yeah.
intros or introductions.
Yeah, I'm Alex. I'm host number one, I guess. One of the hosts of Cinemacast. I'm going to school right now. This is probably one of the best things I can do to get the stress of school off of my back. I don't know. I love movies. Watch movies every week. My wife has a limit on how much of movies I can talk about in her presence, and so I have to find someone else to talk to. But yeah, how about you?
Well, I just muted my mic so I could cough, so.
Oh yeah.
I'm good. My name's Cole, probably last name.
Yeah.
So I'm Cole Stevens. I'm 25. I'm also currently in school, and I love movies. Like, I started a movie blog back on Blogspot probably when I was a junior in high school, and I rated 3 movies. When I set up the blog, and then I never touched it ever again.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure I'm still on the first page of Google. If I Google myself, like Cole's movie blog, I'm still pretty sure it's on the first page of Google.
Yeah.
I'll have to check. But yeah, no, I love movies, love them to death. And then I'm currently studying PR and busy and stressed, and I listen to podcasts a lot. Not as many when I'm in school, but when I intern in the summer, I'll listen to like at least 2 or 3 hours worth of podcasts, like on my way, commuting to work, walking to work, subwaying, and then if I'm at work and doing something that doesn't need me to be writing the whole time, I'll probably listen to some podcasts, usually like NPR and then like fun Tesla or SpaceX or lots of Apple podcasts and especially movie podcasts.
Yeah.
And I think I've been thinking about starting a movie podcast recently before we started talking.
Yeah.
Just because I have some really good roommates who are also very into movies, and we watch movies a lot, but we spend a good half hour to an hour all the time, every day, talking about movies, movie news, movie discussions, stuff that we like and dislike. And I feel like I should just have a podcast because I listen to a fair amount of movie podcasts, like you said.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty unhappy with some of the podcasts that I listen to, and not to throw shade at anybody, but
Yeah.
I feel like they're so caught up in their own world of either being, I'm a journalist, or I have this insider access, or they don't discuss movies for normal people.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was always missing that kind of angle or that beat that I wanted to be able to like associate with and be like, okay, they're talking about why I like or dislike this movie.
Yeah.
And shout out to my favorite movie podcast, Screen Rant, originally the Screen Rant Underground, now Total Geek All. It's
Yeah.
the best. They're just like awesome journalists, but have their own opinions and talk about why they like stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of outside the journalistic perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I love them to death, and they just don't record as often. So
Yeah.
now I'm going to do my own
Yeah.
and just appreciate them when they post.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, how great podcasting is when I'm in the car driving for hours, maybe to work or back from work or school, I realize how many hours I accumulate in the car that I do nothing. Except the last couple of years, I've just been listening to podcasts because it's better than just sitting there. Music's great half the time, but I feel like I need to learn something.
Yeah, like music's distracting in a good way,
Yeah,
but it doesn't like challenge your mind.
exactly.
Versus when I do road trips, like when I drive back home to San Francisco and it's 13 hours, I listen to podcasts and I'm thoroughly awake the whole time. Even if it's quote unquote boring, like I'm listening to something, like
Yeah.
I'm following along in my mind, I'm thinking about the movies, I have like my own answers to questions and it like activates my brain. So yeah, I totally agree. I love podcasts. For those of you who don't listen to podcasts, I highly recommend just like finding something you're interested in and finding a short podcast. Like NPR Morning Edition's great for like a 12-minute update on news every day. If you're into politics, NPR Politics podcast. If you like random stuff, there's like NPR Invisibilia or This American Life. I know a lot of people like this one. A lot of TED Talk podcasts too.
Oh yeah.
It's just a lot of good content to essentially like invigorate your mind
Yeah.
while you're doing something else.
Yeah, and most of my taste of podcasting, a lot of it is movies, a lot of it is, some of it is video games, but I kind of have a love of the Australian accent, and a lot of my podcasts I listen to are Australian guys who may not know everything about the industry or whatever,
Yeah.
but they are dang funny.
Oh yeah,
And,
you definitely mentioned that.
yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess we'll kind of get started. All right. So we're hoping this podcast will probably be 1 hour in length for the foreseeable future
Yeah.
to try and keep our content effective and succinct and to kind of avoid rants.
Yeah.
But we'll probably increase like your stock 90 minutes in the future.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the sweet spot. You can like talk, you can discuss, you can kind of go off topic and come back, but you're not getting completely berated by things that are irrelevant.
Yeah. And we only want to talk on, we were talking earlier how we just kind of want to get into maybe the more important news pieces in movies, important to us because we don't really want to share opinion much on things that we kind of don't understand or we're not passionate about. I think so. There are a good thing about the movie industry is there's movie news about literally everything, and we can pick maybe not the hottest scoop of the week, but unless we're passionate about it, I don't think we're going to cover a lot of things.
Exactly, because we're not doing it from the journalistic perspective.
Yeah.
We're doing it from, I don't want to say the fan perspective, because it's not the fan, it's like the audience.
Yeah.
This is what normal people, everyday people, the majority of people who are into movies,
Yeah.
this is what they think, feel, and care or would be passionate about.
Yeah.
So like any movie news that would be interesting to fans or to movie lovers, that's the thing we want to talk on, because that's the majority of the people listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
So I think, we don't quite have like a motto yet, but I like the ones we had like mentioned, either like talking with a purpose or discussion with a purpose.
God bless you.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, listeners. I've got a little bit of a cold, so I'll try and figure out how to mute and unmute my mic for just sips of water and coughing.
Yeah, and we can edit out whatever we want, so.
That's true. Yeah. This is our second attempt at recording for today, but luckily we got it to work, so shout out to the services who are permitting us to use this space.
Yep.
I used air quotes, but you guys can understand where I use those air quotes. All right, so I think we want to start off with, we already did our personal intros, so next, what we have seen, movies or in movie quality TV over the last week. So,
Yeah.
or we'll say recently, because this is our first one.
Yeah.
So we'll say for last 2 weeks.
And I'll touch a little bit more on the end about, I think, one of the things we're going to talk about. But first off, last week, I think last night, I just watched the Cloverfield Paradox movie.
Oh, me too. I saw that.
And cool. I mean, first of all, I think there's a reason that it wasn't put into theaters. And a lot of it is probably because it's a cool movie. It just doesn't seem like a movie theater grade type of movie. But what I'm more excited about with this movie in particular is how Netflix did it.
How they advertised it?
Yes.
Sorry, we keep adjusting our mics, so that's why here's some Cloverfield Paradox style space creaking in the background. It's all these mechanical arms.
It's so bad.
But no, I thought that was great because I had seen a lot of movie news talking about this potential J.J. Abrams Cloverfield movie, Cloverfield God Particle, like a lot of rumors, but no actual like this is what's happening, this is where it's going, and it had been delayed like multiple times.
Yeah.
So the fact that I didn't know the trailer was coming, there were no rumors, and in the middle of the Super Bowl, there's this trailer. It already has a title. It's coming out. It already has a studio, and it's coming out hours after the Super Bowl. that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because that was the only thing that I wanted to talk about and do after the Super Bowl. I love the Tide commercials, but like everybody was talking about, surprise, there's this cool movie that is literally available in a few hours.
Yeah, and the trailers sold it to me because, one, I liked the first two. I actually
Cloverfield.
didn't see the first Cloverfield movie. I don't know where I was for that. But the second one, I liked it a lot. I understand that, they're not as, well, they are tied together in a way, but I think I heard a little bit ago that it's kind of almost like the new Twilight Zone,
Yeah, kind of.
where it's a bunch of stories that they might not be 100% connected, but they have a little something going on for it.
It's a lesser quality, no offense, movie version of Black Mirror.
Yes.
Where they just take weird sci-fi movies or plots or scripts and then alter them to kind of generically fit into this parallel universe kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I also feel like, do they need to be in the same universe? Because I was reading a lot of articles that said that the people who originally read the script, the original script, to either be involved with this movie, either for acting or directing, was a completely different movie than what was ended up being the Cloverfield paradox. That like at least 50% of it was changed to be able to fit into this paradox of this parallel universe.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's not necessarily necessary. Like you could just call it Cloverfield, and everybody knows it'll be a cool, weird sci-fi movie.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed, but there's certain scenes in the movie where you can tell must have been
Just spliced in there.
Yeah, because I heard that this movie finished like actually filming like a couple of years ago maybe,
Yeah.
and it had just been tossed hand in hand, trying to figure out who would put it out there. I'm happy they did put it on Netflix.
Yeah, because it's great. People
Yeah.
don't have to pay extra to see it, and it's automatic, and
Yeah.
theaters don't lose empty space. Like, it definitely was essentially I don't want to say video on demand, but a streaming service was great.
Yeah, and it paves the way, and like I said, why I'm so excited about this is it paves the way for future movies. Netflix, Amazon, whoever wants to try it out, maybe the Disney Direct that comes out in a year or two, that they can drop a movie instantly, and no matter what, people will be excited about it.
Yeah. And you can save on your marketing costs, because most movies spend anywhere between $100 to $300 million, almost matching the budget of the movie, in marketing, hanging like giant posters in malls, buying bus stop, poster signs. And if you can just tell people in an email to all your subscribers, oh, hey, this new movie's coming out, or buy a $5 million Super Bowl spot, you save yourself a ton of money on marketing.
Yeah, and especially this Super Bowl. I mean, we saw with big franchises as well. There was another
Han Solo trailer.
Yeah, the Han Solo trailer, the Marvel movie that's coming out, Infinity War. Obviously, they only took 30-second spots because they have well-developed fan bases. They don't have to, get too crazy with it.
We don't have
because
to
it just
excite people to
costs-
go to these movies. They're already excited.
Yeah, and they already cost so much money that they don't need to, put more than 30 seconds out there. But I just think that they executed it perfectly with this type of movie.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. And I think probably just transitioning more into the movie. So you haven't seen Cloverfield 1?
No, I mean,
No,
I
I'm only asking
understand
because
kind of-
I haven't seen Cloverfield 2, but I've seen Cloverfield 1.
Yeah. I hear it's good from a lot of people. I just don't.
Honestly, I thoroughly enjoyed Cloverfield 1 because it was kind of a bait and switch.
Yeah.
I don't want to give anything away, but I thought the idea of like a found footage for that type of movie was a really cool perspective. It was essentially what, if you saw a Spider-Man Homecoming interview, they had kind of like the citizen perspective of what it was like during Avengers 1 and during the attack on New York. And essentially, Cloverfield is a whole movie of if you were an everyday person going through a terrorist attack or going through an alien attack or a monster attack of a big city, what would it be like from the ground perspective and not from like the big cinematic perspective? And that was super cool.
That is cool.
And following it, like it was very suspenseful, and when they're like, it's a guy trying to go find his girlfriend. Like you really get attached to these characters because you can recognize like if this happened, I can totally see myself doing this.
Yeah, it seems like you would be the one taking the video. You'd be the friend.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So,
And I do want to get back and see that, so it kind of, maybe more things tie together than I'm picking up on.
Yeah. I will say, though, from having watched the first one, in no way did Cloverfield Paradox need to be involved with Cloverfield 1.
Yeah.
Like, they did not need to be associated with the same universe. And, like, you saw how, like, there was, like, the random cuts in Paradox that was like, oh, back on Earth, random explosions, / at the end, like, a giant monster sticking his head out of the clouds.
Yeah, the big cricket monster everyone talks about from the first movie.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's his face just popping out of the clouds like,
But like again, that doesn't tell me like exactly which Earth it was on. And again, we're talking about Earths with parallel universes. So the one that they
Yes.
match with is a very similar parallel Earth.
Mm-hmm.
That almost the same thing was happening with technology, with a loss of energy, but it was just like the crew was different and theirs had crashed. But
Yeah.
that was basically the only difference.
Yeah.
And weirdly, it was on the other side of the solar system, which I don't know how. I mean, I guess it's a parallel universe, so anything could have happened. But like,
Yeah.
you're telling me that it's like the opposite season, so like,
Yeah.
that was kind of weird. I was feel like if you're gonna be in a parallel universe, I want like the laws of gravity to be the same, just like
Yes.
two objects occupying the same space in
Yeah.
different mediums. But my whole issue with that is, so I get that.
Mm-hmm.
So where the hell did the monsters come from?
Yeah.
Are you telling me that that's a extremely parallel universe where monsters ended up living on Earth?
Yeah.
Because that's a way more complicated story to tell.
And like you know how in the movie they're just like, oh, if you do this, with the hadron collider and whatever, like demons will come or whatever. Whatever we call demons or something.
Yeah, which doesn't. I mean, you could say parallel universes, but like,
The thing is, there's no explanation for almost anything in Paradox.
yes,
It's just like, all right, here's the name.
yeah. Or explain to me how the girl ended up in the wall.
Exactly.
Because how did the other one crash and her still be like, the original idea for the plot is
Yeah.
great, but I feel like there was a lot of sloppy execution
Mm-hmm.
of like the Earth shouldn't have been on the other side of the sun,
Yeah.
which would mean a completely different season, like a different astrological and different position of everything. Plus, if her ship had crashed,
Mm-hmm.
how was she stuck inside of the walls? Well, also like their other one should have exploded or been disintegrated or fused with this ship instead
Yeah.
of like crashing into the
Yeah,
Earth.
because the idea of alternate dimensions and all that stuff is that things are the same but slightly different.
Yeah, it seems
but-
like people chose different options.
Yeah, and having the Earth being on a complete different side of the,
Yeah.
it's a little, it's not a bad movie if you want to go in and just have
It's
fun.
entertaining,
It's
and it's
entertaining,
suspenseful.
exactly. And there's moments where you're like, what is going on? Like the dude loses his arm, and
Yeah.
he's kind of funny about it because obviously it didn't hurt because it just kind of
Yeah.
happened.
I just feel like it was an amalgamation of 4 previously done sci-fi movies. It was very similar to Event Horizon. If you've ever seen Event Horizon, they go to almost to the center of a black hole, and before they cross the event horizon,
Yeah.
a lot of really weird things are happening, trying to be like parallel universes, and the
Mhm.
ship's creaking, and it's kind of horror. So it's a lot like that movie.
Yeah.
And then it just like pulls tropes from like there was a scene where like the worms explode out of his body. Okay, totally a rip off of Alien 1 or any of the Aliens.
That's that's exactly what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
and so like that wasn't like unique to this movie because I already knew how it was coming. And then when you had like okay, we have to survive in space. That's a very cliche.
That's
topic.
almost every space movie.
Yeah.
Is something goes wrong and you have to survive in space.
Yeah, and I just thought that, like, and the captain like sacrificing himself, like I have to do this, like, with such a cool idea of like parallel opportunities. I would have loved like 2 of the same person to have been on the board, like 2 of the captains,
Yeah.
and they don't know that each other are there, and so they keep walking to them. So the audience doesn't know that there's 2 people. So he
Yeah.
walks in and he's like, "Hey, I thought I told you to go clean this." She's like, "No, you told me that I had to go fix the electrical." He's like, "Go clean this." And then she goes to go clean something. He's like, "I thought you were working on the electrical." And she's like, "No, you told me to come clean." He's like, "No, I didn't tell you to do that." So like really
dude.
confusing the audience.
Now
Like,
that you say that, that would be
Yeah.
such a cool twist.
and you don't have to do crazy special effects. That's just thinking and putting more effort into the original idea of your story.
Yeah.
Which is also why one of my life goals is to be a movie producer by 45. So I can take a script and be like, "Great idea. Some of this is shit. Please rewrite this."
Yeah.
And until I feel like you've written a good, cohesive, successful script on paper
Yeah.
that only costs like $100,000 total, then I'll give you $100 million to make this movie.
Yeah. And that's what is mind-boggling to me. We're regular people.
Yeah.
Right?
But if we can have better ideas, how do the people who get paid millions of dollars
I know.
put forth shittier ideas?
And I understand, like, yeah, movie production's hard, directing is hard, because there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of experience that you need when
Correct.
it goes into that. But when it comes to writing a story, I just feel like,
It's the
you know,
easiest part, isn't it?
yeah, too many times people worry about, I think, other things, about how it's going to make money or something. There's too much corporate hand into it, maybe.
I completely agree.
And that strips back. It's with every movie that comes out, speaking of The Last Jedi,
Uh,
it's like every movie that comes out when everyone kind of, after the fact, sits and they think, they're just like, man, that was maybe there's some lost potential there. And that happens with almost every big franchise now, and you'd think that you'd want to get the craziest story out there.
Yes.
That generates more interest and attention from the public than a safe movie.
I completely agree. Whether you look at it as a Star Wars movie or a Fast and Furious movie or James Bond, Skyfall made over $1 billion. I am the world's biggest James Bond fan. I do James Bond trivia. I own every James Bond movie in DVD as well as Blu-ray discs. I have special edition books. Like, I love James Bond. And while Skyfall isn't necessarily the most James Bond of all the James Bonds, it's a very good movie. The only reason it made over $1 billion was because critics gave it an A, because it was a well-made movie.
Yeah.
The directing was beautiful, the cinematography was beautiful, the story was intriguing and surprising, but it was grounded, and it was still true to the character. And then the sequel, Spectre, which I enjoy because I'm a fan, had a ton of plot holes. It lacked almost 50% of what made Skyfall great, and it had and Spectre only made half the same profits as Skyfall. And I'm like, if you make a good movie, you will make more money, and you'll make more critical acclaim, and you'll make more awards.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you put in the extra effort to make a better movie from a return on investment side?
Yeah.
The better movie you make, the more money you will get, regardless.
Yeah.
And I feel like when people make movies, the outcome is not even like make money, but just like, will this, okay, well, it's based on money, but it's like, will people come watch this? Not will they enjoy this, or will this be a good story or a good movie?
Will you fill a seat, basically?
Essentially, yeah. Will we sell tickets? That's all we care about, which is stupid because the better a movie is, look at Jumanji. I mean, does anybody want to ask why Jumanji, a sequel of a non-franchise remake with Dwayne The Rock Johnson, which, not to hate on Dwayne The Rock Johnson, he makes lots of money, but he's not the best actor, and he's not in the best, most critically acclaimed movies.
Yeah.
So how does his movie become the highest-grossing movie by Sony Pictures of all time domestically?
Word of mouth.
And also, yeah, exactly, and also almost match Titanic for best domestic weekends at #1.
Yeah.
Like duration. Like it came out in December. It's February, and it was still the #1 at Super
Was
Bowl
it like
weekend.
last week or the week before that? I was just like,
Still
whoa.
at #1. And you're right. It's word of mouth, but it's because people enjoyed it because it wasn't campy. Like there were penis jokes in this movie,
Yeah.
but they were almost like family-friendly penis jokes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like they weren't selling for cheap laughs. They were trying to tell a story that people could relate to, that had a good beginning, middle, and end, that made sense, and they had good characters.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like Jack Black was funny, pretending to be a teenage girl, being in a middle-aged man's body.
Yeah.
But he played true to whatever character they played up, and they still had character development through the story. So they wrote a good script, and they took the time to make sure that the jokes landed, that anything they relatively did in the movie had a purpose. And I feel like audiences recognize that, which is why they saw it time and time again, and it has made a buttload of money.
Yeah.
Like more than Interstellar by Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost making more than maybe even The Last Jedi domestically, right?
Yeah.
How does Jumanji compete
yeah.
against Star Wars?
Good story.
Exactly.
Well, and that's the thing. That's one of the big reasons raunchy movies are dying, is because they may go for the short-term laughs, but the long-term good story isn't there. And so I've noticed last couple of years that genre is dying.
Yes, 100%.
All right, but we might move on.
Correct. And I just got a quick news shout out. One of my roommates, who will be on a future episode, just texted me that the composer from Sicario has passed away.
Oh, no.
I just watched that for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I loved it. I mean, I thought that was amazing. So let me just look up his name to give him a shout out.
Good catch on a little news spot.
Yeah, just a little news plug. Johan Johansson.
No, okay. So what else has he done? Because I've heard his name.
So he has been the composer for
Arrival. Yeah.
Arrival, which won multiple Academy Awards. He did Sicario. He also did The Theory of Everything with Felicity Jones from
Like from Rogue One.
Yeah. As well as Eddie Redmayne. He also was a composer for a lot of smaller stuff. Looks like a lot of European things. But yeah, his biggest movies were The Theory of Everything, Sicario, Arrival, and some other movies that are currently in production. But
Dang.
that's sad. That movie is a great soundtrack.
Yeah.
So yeah, shout out to him. That was a bummer. He passed away.
I think this kind of in the way Carrie Fisher was for Last Jedi. I'm sure, was he the one who did Sicario 2?
No, he's not listed as the music for Sicario 2.
Oh, okay. Never mind. My point
He was only 48. Died at 48 in Berlin, Germany,
Holy cow.
just this year, 2018.
Well,
That's
little moment of respect there.
moment of respect. Speaking of Carrie Fisher, though, just to completely jump off the boat and to a side comment,
Yeah.
should they have killed off Carrie Fisher in The Last Jedi? I'm sorry, should they have killed off Princess Leia in The Last Jedi?
All right. Well, I think, honestly, so there's, yeah.
So we can
She passed away in
easy.
real life.
We can
Yeah.
say A, before she passed away, just the character, should they have written the character off? And then B, when she did pass away, should they have just written the character off, knowing that the actress was gone?
Yeah. I half wanted them to, but half of me wants them to have a funeral at the beginning
Ooh.
of the next movie. Kind of, that way it doesn't have to happen on screen, and it gives them some time to work it into the story, because you don't know what the next story is going to be, and sometimes they don't know what the next story is going
Well,
to be.
yeah, that's their problem, is they write the script before each movie.
Yeah,
That's why
Han
Ryan,
Solo?
Yeah.
No funeral. And Ryan Johnson was talking about this, how they just couldn't find a place for it,
But that's because they didn't write this whole trilogy before they filmed it, which is
Yeah.
half their problem.
which I think they could have found a place for it, but yeah, it just wasn't
Yeah.
a thing. I want them. I mean, it all depends. I don't care what they do. They can give me a movie, I hope that they start the next movie with a funeral moment where they honor both Leia and Han, because they didn't get to Han.
Well, what about
in the
Luke? Because
second
Luke's
one.
gone now, too. And no offense, but
Yeah.
these characters don't know those old people enough to really care about them.
True. So this is a fan problem. This is mostly a fan problem.
Oh,
when
I
it
feel like
comes
it's a
to the
story
funerals.
problem.
Yeah.
It's a fan problem because the story isn't written well enough for these new people to attach.
Yeah.
We only knew Obi-Wan for half of A New Hope, and he was such an important character, and everybody really, really liked, quote-unquote, Uncle Ben. He was formative for Luke's path,
Yeah.
but also, like, we had time in the story to understand that relationship and to see that mentoring.
Yeah.
And Rey is just perfect. She's like Mary Sue. She doesn't need any help. She's already good to go.
Yeah.
Doesn't need training, and her training are, like, 3 sentences. It's not actual physical training.
Yeah.
And so it's like she doesn't really need these people. I mean, she gave Leia a hug when Leia probably should have given Chewbacca a hug at the end of like The Force Awakens. It's just like I feel like it's sloppy writing that these old people haven't had a big enough purpose in these people's lives. I mean,
Yeah.
Luke did kind of save the. It's not even a resistance. It's like 12 people.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I don't understand about this movie is the rebels from the old trilogy were numbering like in the thousands. They had all these different ships. Even in
Yeah.
Rogue One, they had this huge armada
Yeah.
that was just starting out. Halfway through Rogue One, they're like, we don't have enough people or ships.
Yeah.
And in the movie, with just barely having enough, there's like hundreds of ships, these battle cruisers, these destroyers. And then you come into this new trilogy 30 years later, after we destroy the Emperor and the Empire crumbles.
Yeah.
We should have literally the whole entire government, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's what I understand about The Last Jedi. How do we only have one Star Cruiser?
And I have,
Right? Like, that just doesn't make sense logically or from, like, the story standpoint.
yeah, which that one got destroyed too. So,
But
are they stuck on crate? Is that?
I mean, they said their distress call went out. No,
Yeah.
they're not stuck on cricket because the Millennium Falcon took them away. But
Oh, yeah, okay.
if the Millennium Falcon can store the entire Resistance, that's an embarrassing fact.
Yeah. Quick speculation though on the next movie. Because of that fact, I've actually been thinking how interesting it would be. All right, the First Order is kind of reeling a bit, but let's say nobody responded to Leia's call on crate.
Sure.
That's what happened. And so they go off, and I would like to see possibly a whole entire galaxy ganging up on the First Order, because the Resistance has nobody left. So who's going to fight off the First Order or Kylo Ren in any sense of the term with 12 people,
Well, that's one point. Like, I feel like it's just bad storytelling. Because if the whole rest of the galaxy comes together, why didn't they do that in The Last Jedi? Why didn't they do that as soon as they blew up the government?
Yeah.
Right? Like, if
'Cause they
anybody
should
blew up
be-
DC,
Yeah.
every American, regardless if you're liberal or not, would take up a gun and go fight all the people who just attacked us.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say like ergo 9/11 to be insensitive, but look what happened to literally the Middle East after 9/11. It's
Yeah.
like, but and that should have happened in The Last Jedi because like it wasn't just we took out our opponents. No, you took out all the leaders, the representatives, and the central culture of this new government that
Yeah.
had been installed for like 20 years. That's
Yeah.
a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like I feel like that would be cool, but then that would just be bad storytelling.
Yeah.
And then even at this point, if they say like, okay, now all these people join the resistance,
Mm-hmm.
they should have joined the resistance in the second leg of, or the second act of this trilogy.
Yeah.
For a big battle at the end.
Yeah.
Now, any battle that happens in 3 is kind of useless.
Mm-hmm.
Because the story that just happened in The Last Jedi should have been the start of a trilogy
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're just escaping these people's clutches. They're chasing us. Like, we're just trying to survive. This hope has to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're starting this trilogy on this fire and, like, building, like that's a good story.
Yeah.
But it's a horrible sequel for The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I'm interested to see what J.J. Abrams does coming back after not having control for the middle.
Which
of
that
almost
would
his
annoy
trilogy.
me. If I make a story or I like, put somebody up for a layup and then they just punt the ball into the audience
Mm-hmm.
and then I have to reset up all my pieces, like I would be very annoyed. I feel like he's gonna unwrite some of the things that happen. Like I bet you he brings Snoke back.
In some way.
Because you're not gonna set up this all powerful supreme leader that we get no backstory on how he has the money to finance everything, how he has this clout, why he's considered the Kim Jong-un of the First Order, how does he know like the Force, how is he super ancient? And so I feel like he's gonna like bring that back and be like, yeah, okay, yeah, like we killed him in 2, but that wasn't really him, or he brought himself back to life, or he has a clone.
Yeah. Or what? And what's the alternative? They bring it in a book. And nobody's gonna. The general audience doesn't read the
Yes.
books, and so putting it in a book is, it's fixing story holes.
Yeah, you can't have a speech and then say, don't worry, my best parts are my tweets after or my follow-up blog. Like, no, if you don't do it in the main event,
Yeah.
it's not part of the main event. It's not part of the real story, which means, again, bad storytelling.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I personally would give The Last Jedi like a B minus.
Yeah. And you're a lot more hard on it than I am because
Well, it's
There's-
just like,
I mean, yeah.
I mean, like, there were some entertaining things in a movie overall, but I still feel like I wanted so much more, and some things didn't make sense. As soon as the purple lady, I don't remember her name.
Yeah.
The one from
Laura Dern.
Laura
whatever
Dern,
her character
Yeah,
name
Laura
is.
Dern from Jurassic Park. As soon as she hyperspaces into the entire fleet, I got so annoyed with the rest of the movie because they let 2 other ships get destroyed as they ran out of gas that they could have just used to take out the First Order.
Yeah.
So you literally wasted 2 bullets for an hour and a half running away that you could have just used the first half of the movie.
Yeah. You want to know what's funny, though? Right before she goes and does that, she's talking to Leia. And before watching the movie, I've heard a lot of people saying it's challenging in certain ways. And so they're saying goodbye, and I was just like, oh, man, I hope they don't, like, kiss or something. Because I don't know what's going to happen in this movie. And people say, like, things you won't expect, I'm just like, this better not happen in this moment because I don't know what, that'd just be...
Yeah, I feel like a very cool movie, but it did not feel like a Star Wars movie. Like part of like the story. It just felt like it almost felt like fan fiction. This whole movie. It felt like an episode of Star Trek.
This whole sequels is very, and I wonder because it's very different, like with the prequels where the prequels came out and everyone's like, this is nothing like the original trilogy.
True.
So we haven't had anything like the original.
But it still
trilogy.
felt in the same universe. It still felt right, even if it was different.
Yeah.
And the thing that I don't understand is they killed it with Rogue One. Rogue One feels so
In the
grounded in the
universe,
Star
yeah.
Wars universe.
Yeah.
And how they just lose that with this new trilogy. But anyways, I digress. A good transition, if we're done, would probably
I
be,
was just thinking perfect segue.
yeah, would be into the upcoming Star Wars movies, which will probably come back to Han Solo and to other things and talk about the big movie news of the week was that the Double D's, the showrunners from the greatest series of all time on television, Game of Thrones, have been greenlit by Disney and probably picked by Disney to be the production showrunners for upcoming multiple Star Wars films.
Yeah. For me, this came out of nowhere because I was already thinking with Ryan Johnson's trilogy coming up.
They're
That,
probably
okay,
good.
that's pretty packed. We're gonna have more Star Wars movies than we've ever had,
Yeah.
and then out of nowhere we get this news, and
From
I'm-
Disney themselves.
From Disney themselves, and I'm more on the side of I love Star Wars so much. There's so much to go into. There's
Yeah.
so much in Legends that they can pull from. That I'm happy getting more Star Wars, and especially like when it comes from directors that are well established. They're good at what they do. I'm happy that we're getting more Star Wars. I'd like to see, like how you were saying before, we get these things written down beforehand. We have a story arc to go through, and we execute it that way.
Yeah, and the thing that surprised me the most was that Disney announced this. Now, granted, coming off of their 20th Century Fox merger, people have been questioning like what's going to happen to the Alien franchises or the future Deadpool movies because it's Disney. The
Yeah.
Mouse House generally isn't interested in adult genres.
Yeah.
So people were concerned about that. They
'Cause-
even announced with their new streaming service there will not be R-rated content on their streaming service. It'll essentially be TV shows and movies for children
Yeah.
or families. And so just after seeing that announcement about the streaming service, I felt like it was completely 180 to hear that like the most HBO, nudity, violence, and some very, very tough topics that probably don't need to be mentioned, involving Game of
Yeah.
Thrones.
They get pulled on for what George Lucas says as a 12-year-old franchise.
Essentially. So yeah, it was very interesting, kind of out of left field. But the thing that surprised me the most was that they were announced as essentially I'm kind of losing the word, but they're going to be in charge of these movies because the Double Ds, they're not directors. They're partial writers.
Yeah.
I think they've written before. They wrote for some other TV shows, but as far as Game of Thrones, they're the showrunners. So they're the ones, and they're producers. So they pick the directors. They work with the writers and pick writers for specific episodes. They work on the overarching theme and the trilogy. Okay, and like, how are we going to shoot this? How are we going to film this? Is this exactly the story that we want to tell? Do we feel like this character is building the way they need to? Okay, well, I have some ideas. Writers take some of these ideas and see what ideas you come up with, and so they essentially make sure that everything happens within the same realm, that everything is on tone, that we're doing the right things to the characters, we're not wasting time, but we're showing this growth. And so they didn't announce like Lawrence Kasdan would be writing these new movies. They didn't announce that someone like J.J. Abrams would be directing and producing. It's that these people who are great at adapting stories and great about holding true to ideals and to characters and to building up all these very interesting and interweaving methods, they're in charge of Star Wars, which got me very excited because, hopefully they'll fix my biggest issues with the current Star Wars, is that there's no story planning for any big arching stories or plans or plots, and that people seem to do things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, whoever added Rose to The Last Jedi in the script probably needs to be fired because she was useless in the script. Her sister, who died at the beginning,
That was an amazing scene.
was an amazing scene, but she essentially did more for the story than Rose did because we saw her believing in the Force as a belief and as a hope for something. And all Rose did was kind of whine and complain and punch people and zap people and tears of them, complain about rich people making money off of the war, destroying a casino planet, riding some animals, and then somehow, impossibly to physics, catching up to Finn as he's about to sacrifice himself, which I would have loved because I don't like that character.
That's what my wife was saying. She's just like, kind of wish he died at that moment.
And somehow Rose comes back in from an angle to save the day, knocks him out, wakes up enough time to kiss him, surprisingly, because we have to throw in a love triangle into this new trilogy that was completely I felt forced upon. That did not feel like an appropriate kiss. And then passes out, and then they somehow conveniently have enough time to walk around the current battle from the enemy side while apparently like Kylo Ren shooting at Luke Skywalker and then them having a lightsaber battle. Apparently they had enough time to walk this entire battlefield back to the door.
Yeah.
Like, I would love The Last Jedi so much more if everything she was involved with was just taken out, and not because of like anything specifically, but her character was not pivotal to this story. And I feel like the Double Ds are great at making sure if we're giving someone screen time, it's for a purpose or a future purpose that is still relevant. Like Gendry, everybody used to always ask about Game of Thrones, like, what's happened to Gendry? Like, I think in season 2 or season 3, he left rowing, and people would always joke, like, what's happening to him? What's happening to him? He just came back, and he's playing a pivotal role in the story, and everything was purposeful.
Yeah.
And I just feel like so much is just not purposeful in these recent Star Wars Rogue One movies, or movies excluding Rogue One.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of a rant, but yeah.
But it all pertains to what is going to happen, especially with this news,
Yeah, I'm excited. And honestly, I think that they should have the full power to do what they believe because I don't know what Kathleen Kennedy is doing. They've had to do reshoots on every single one of these side stories. Rogue One had 6 months of reshoots. That wasn't the same director. That wasn't Gareth Edwards. And even looking at this new one, they fired the directors.
Yeah.
The guys who did the Lego movie. They got fired and asked Ron Howard to come in. So that concerns me that they don't either have a lid on their ability or they're not watching the dailies to figure out what the movie looks like. Because I haven't heard of a Marvel movie needing to go through 6 months of reshoots.
No, Kevin Feige's got things down
Exactly.
to a T.
And I feel like the Double D's will essentially Kevin Feige their version of Star Wars.
I think that's what we need is a Kevin Feige of Star Wars.
Because we don't have a Kevin Feige for DC. They've tried. But either he doesn't have the complete full autonomy and control of his production studio, because Suicide Squad was a mess. Mm-hmm. David Ayer has done some good movies. He has also done some terrible movies. Bright, great visuals, but the plot was a little bit lacking.
He did some X-Men stuff, right? Was that David Ayer?
I believe he did First Class.
Okay.
Actually, I take that back. That was the guy who did Kingsman.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to think, Ayer, Goyer, I'm trying to think of, like,
there's,
the right
there's
name.
a ton of people. But, yeah, my issue with DC is the fact of they greenlit Suicide Squad, started giving them money to hiring, casting, and start filming before the script was even finished. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that could be the studio's issue of saying, hey, just go ahead and make this movie, we trust you, but then at the end, not liking what he did and bringing in the guys who made the funny trailer too.
Yeah.
Those were the people who edited the final version of the movie. Mm-hmm. No one who was included in the original process. And so I feel like the Double D's need to either have full control like Kevin Feige does.
Yeah.
Or that, Kathleen Kennedy and them don't try and sidestep them at the same time. Like, they need to either have full autonomy, or it's just not going to work.
And here's what's happening with Marvel that's the most interesting to me that isn't happening with DC.
Lots of money and the critical acclaim.
Yeah, but the fact that Marvel has announced their future movies, I can't remember, a couple of years back, they announced, like, up to 2019, 2020, 2021. They announced these movies beforehand, years beforehand, which...
They've done that since phase one.
Yeah, which normally would mean disaster for your, if you're not going the right direction, kind of like how DC's going.
Yeah.
And they, DC's like, oh, look what Marvel's doing. Let's try the same thing. And almost none of what they planned is going to happen. Or is it? We don't know. And,
the Aquaman movie's going to happen.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman 2, most likely because it was well received.
Yes.
But as far as like Justice League 2, that's up in the air.
Yeah.
The Cyborg movie, I think, got canceled. The Flash movie's on ice. Green Lantern Corps is on ice. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the difference between that happening between DC and Marvel is the fact that with Marvel, these are the movies that we're announcing in our upcoming slate to match our overall storyline. Yeah. They have a complete storyline that they're working off of.
Since the first phase, they've had their over storyline, and
the trick is that they make sure that each movie is standalone, independent, but they still say, like, okay, if this is the 10 parts of the movie, these are the 8 parts of the movie that we already know need to be in here. And the director, you can creatively figure out how do you want to organize this or put your own spin on it. But basically, these 8 things need to happen. And it's even more helpful because they're just adapting off of things from the comics. They might be changing, but Kevin Feige probably has a master script on how all these movies add into the next one. And they probably adjust a little bit as they go, but they know where they're headed and what their ending is. And I feel like DC, they just announced movies that they could possibly make, not movies that needed to fit into some story that they were telling. Yeah. And that was the issue.
Yeah. And I have nothing but praise for Marvel. I know people get in their, I'm sick of superhero movies. As a business model of what they've been doing, though.
They're the patriots of movie studios.
Yeah. They're pioneers of the cinematic universe in a sense that they know how to do it.
So much of the highest grossing movies have been Marvel movies. So many of them make at least $70 million or more, which is more than some of the Christopher Nolan movies. Yeah. Interstellar only made $50 million this opening weekend. I would probably say 75% of Marvel movies have made more money than Interstellar did in its opening weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, you can knock superhero movies, but they do a good job making sure it's entertaining, generally family-friendly, good action, and a relatively good storyline. Now we can get hung up on the fact that most of the villains are just anti-heroes, literally. That's a bad person with the same capabilities. Yeah. But not to knock Marvel Studios, that's based off of the Marvel comics, and those were the original greatest villains written for each person. Yeah. So they're drawing off of already established content, and I feel like DC, they just have no idea what direction they're heading. Like, who cast Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor? If I had to pick one person to probably... Oh, this is getting really dark. But I was going to say, to be, like, shot for, like, just doing a really bad job, it would be whoever cast Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Because, and no capabilities should that have been done, because it was just terrible. It was terrible to the plot. He's not a good character. Lex Luthor is an amazing character.
Yeah, and Jesse Eisenberg doesn't know how to play anything but one role, and I think they should have kind of looked at that beforehand. In my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he is very much a character actor. Like, who's his doppelganger? Michael Cera. Like, they're very niche. Now, you look at Jack Black, and people might say, like, well, Jack Black is very niche. Okay, but he can also play multiple parts. So I would just say that it's...
And he's likable from the get-go.
Yeah, and not that Jack Black should be Lex Luthor, but I feel like it just goes back to this overarching vision and purpose and an end goal. And I don't think DC has that. And I feel like a lot of production studios don't have that when they start with movies. The end goal, like we talked about, is to get butts and seats.
Yep.
And not make a good story. Because with a good story, even a poorly or a difficultly made movie can still be well affected. Like recently, I just saw Hostiles.
Yeah.
And it was made by some production studio I'd never heard from. All the trailers were from this production studio. I'd never seen their trailers or heard of those movies. And they really look like C-quality movies. But Hostiles was a very good story. I don't think the directing was great. Directing wasn't bad. Some of the cinematography is very off. Like, there were literally blurry scenes where, like, everybody was completely out of focus. But I still give that movie a B+. Because the story that they were telling was a very compelling story.
Yeah.
And the way that they composed the movie as far as, like, storyboarding it and some of the, like, scenes that like, you could tell somebody had said, like, hey, I want this to come from, like, left to right. I want it to look like this. It was it was a great idea that they wanted to translate. And even though they didn't completely translate it equally to their perfect vision, they still did a really good job. And even with some poorly edited or some poorly filmed scenes, I still give that movie a B+.
Yeah.
But if it had been a bad story, I would have given it like a D or an F.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a Suicide Squad because it was a good story, at least. And I feel like so many movies today are just not good stories.
Yeah. And that overarching theme of everything probably right now.
Yeah.
Storytelling should come over money.
Any
and
day.
I don't know if we'll ever get back to that again. And we're talking about movies, video games, everything.
I feel like television is winning. And why the reason people are calling it the golden age of television is because people are focusing on the story.
Some movies that should, because of the source material, maybe, a lot of movies today should have been told on the small screen because they have time to flesh out good stories.
Oh, yeah. Like, you could never make Game of Thrones into a movie. Like,
No.
you cannot Lord of the Rings Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's why it's hard to make books into movies because
Too much content.
Yeah, they need that time to get through it. Venom, I'm interested to see what what happens with Venom.
Because we didn't see him in the trailer.
Well, not only that, but there is way too much content for Venom for a movie, for just one movie, to kind of get the full essence of what Venom is. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Honestly, just kind of tangenting onto that trailer, I was very surprised that the narration was Tom Hardy's American voice. I've never heard him with an American accent. Like, it reminisced of Tom Hardy from Inception, and I kind of knew it was Tom Hardy, but at the same time, it kind of confused me because I'm not used to him having that, that accent. He kind of always has this, like, kind of grovelly Mad Max voice, but...
And it sounded funny. It sounded funny when he was talking at first because I caught off guard.
It did. It was
he
like,
was narrating.
From New York and this, and he kind of have really hard, like, R's in the back, and Venom, and things happen, and I'm like, I was just surprised by his voice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm excited. Sony doesn't have a great track record. They have a partnership with Marvel, so Marvel probably won't let them do a terrible movie.
Yeah.
But, again, this is a Sony movie. And, I mean, no offense.
And it was one that we didn't even know if it even needed to happen.
Yeah,
And
we
it
didn't
still
ask for this. It's not really
maybe.
needed.
Yeah.
And no offense, but Josh Tank's Fantastic Four, like, if you're going to make a movie that bad as a production studio, you've definitely lost my trust and my faith for future upcoming movies.
Is he?
Directing? No.
Okay, good.
I mean...
Because I thought you were like...
Future installments of this podcast will probably be a little bit more PC, so, like, the movie industry doesn't hate us. But, yeah, like, Josh tanked on Fantastic Four.
Is it Trank or Tank?
Good question. We'll probably look that up.
I don't really know. We'll find out.
We'll probably cut this out and and then figure it out in the future. But, yeah. So, interesting. Yeah. Okay. So we kind of went on some tangents there, but what do you want to kind of angle towards for our last, like, 15, 20 minutes?
All right. Well,
and again, this is our first one, so we didn't quite make an agenda, which we'll probably make in the future.
Yeah, but hey, good news. We know how to fill up the time.
That is true. Yeah, I was kind of worried we weren't going to I mean, I knew we would be able to talk about stuff,
Yeah.
but I feel like if you listen to this, it doesn't sound completely incoherent. Now, honestly, we'll probably edit this part out, but
Yeah.
I think we did a pretty good job.
Oh, yeah.
So far.
And yeah, I know. Like, yeah, we're working on an agenda. We're working on a lot of things. I don't believe that we should have waited to get this going once we had everything down pat, because I don't know. I think it's just as interesting to see something grow.
I think we also need practice.
Exactly. And a practice that we can get feedback on. If we just make this and only listen to it ourselves,
Yeah.
pointless.
I feel like our pacing's pretty good too.
Yeah.
Like, we kind of just like slid literally right into this, like turn the mics on and just like started recording.
Yeah, we kind of really didn't go over notes.
Which, I mean, like, we had plans to, but this was more going to be like our screen test, literally.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were just doing it really well, so we decided we'll just record the whole thing and use it as our, like, complete reference point for how we want to choose things. So this
Yeah.
one's probably more for us than it is for listeners,
Mm-hmm.
but I think we were doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, but yeah, you're welcome to listen.
Oh, yeah, listener feedback. So this is also a good practice for us. So you guys can email us at...
cinemacastpod@gmail.com. That is our Gmail handle.
Yeah. So explain the pod. I meant to ask you about that the other day.
All right, so
Instead of like Cinemacast at Gmail.
man, I tried cinemacast@gmail.
Was it taken?
Yeah, taken. That's why I say this is something that sounds like it should have been taken, and granted, it has. I have no idea what they're doing with it because I've researched into what Cinemacast itself is.
Yeah.
Nothing. I can't find anything.
Interesting. Well, as long as there's not another podcast called Cinemacast, I think we're probably fine.
Yeah, so Cinemacast Pod, and at least there you know that it's a podcast. It is cinemacastpod@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And
Because are we going to call it the Cinemacast podcast?
yeah,
I think it's okay. Because I love the word Cinemacast. It has a nice ring to the ears, a
Yeah.
nice weight.
It
Good,
flows-
hefty weight.
yeah. And same with our socials. Twitter, that's Cinemacast Podcast or Cinemacast Pod. Really, everything's just going to be with that handle.
Yeah, and we'll be making some social media profiles because we want to do the best version of a podcast that we wished we followed. So that's just going to make us, hopefully, give you guys the best experience. So we're going to make a Twitter, an Instagram. Nobody really uses Facebook anymore. But the purpose of that is to give you guys like breaking updates. So, for example, if we're watching the Super Bowl, the Han Solo trailer drops, we can tweet from our account page and be like, hey, did you guys see this? And less of like a journalistic announcement, because again, we're not journalists, and we don't want to do it from that angle. We could, but instead of just announcing, hey, Star Wars trailer, that we could be like thumbs up, thumbs down, throw in an emoji, or be like golden dice ? Or like add some sort of commentary
Yeah.
and let you guys know this will be a topic on our upcoming weekly podcast.
Yeah, because one of our biggest points with this is we're regular people.
Yes.
We're not in the industry. We're not, we don't have some special scoops. We are just regular guys. But that's the thing. We want
The personal
some
spin
feedback.
on it, like the opinionated.
Yeah, we want to know what you guys think about these things. You send suggestions into our Twitter, some suggestions into our email.
Yeah.
Because that's what we want to get to. What regular people are thinking about this.
Exactly. Because I feel like that's what we want to, like, we want to know what other people and quote unquote, the public think. And one thing that I know you talked about, Alex, was like having a lot of polls, like Twitter polls. So like having like tweeting like, hey, Han Solo trailer from Cinemacast, we think like ? Or that music at the end was horrible. Like I would probably tweet that from Cinemacast. Like interesting trailer, more Rogue One than I would have expected. I'm excited. I was excited until that terrible music at the end, and then be like, what did you guys think? What did you like the most? Or what did you hate the most? And kind of get some feedback from you guys.
Yeah.
Because
Cinemacast Nation.
ooh, Cinemacast Nation. I like
Yeah.
that.
No, yeah, get on that because we're going to have a segment called Polling the People, and we need to know what you guys think.
Yeah, so we'll be doing that. And as far as Instagram, we want to give you guys updates on like the different topics we'll be coming out with for the week. Because I think Alex and I talked about hopefully recording these podcasts on Fridays
Yeah.
and then editing them over the weekend and then probably publishing them on a Monday or Tuesday. So for those of you people going to the workplace and you're bored Mondays and Tuesdays or getting back into school and it's the daily grind, this can hopefully be some escapism for you.
New week, new podcast.
New week, new podcast, new stuff to talk about. And so we'll be talking about everything that happened that week, anything that we saw that week. And so leading up to that, every day of the week until that podcast, we'll be talking about new things.
Yeah.
So even if it comes out on Monday and our podcast comes out on Tuesday, if a news story drops on Monday, we can tweet about it or we can Instagram. And even Alex and I can have like little snippets of us discussing and kind of posting them to our stories. So we can keep giving you guys content. Because again, I love the Screen Rant Underground / Total Geek Out podcast. but they've only done like 3 podcasts over the last 8 months, and it's killed me because I want to know what these people think. I really like their opinions, and I don't know that. So we want to be able to give that to you guys.
Yeah, and you know what, people? Here's a good suggestion that's great. Don't listen to any other podcasts. just listen to what we have to say. No,
I don't know.
just kidding. I'm
I
just
would kind of
kidding,
disagree with that because I listen to like 3 different movie podcasts, and there's like some that I listen to because I have to because I can't find other ones.
I know.
But like, and I'm not gonna like shout them out, but I think the more you listen to, hopefully, will allow you to figure out what you like and dislike about ours, so you guys can help us fine tune this, so
Yeah.
it can literally be the best movie listener podcast. Because I feel like that's the goal we're listening for. I'm gonna write that down. We want to be the best movie listener podcast,
Yeah, that's our proposition.
and we need
to
your
you,
help.
the audience. Yeah.
So
But, okay, so I think I've got a good way I think of wrapping this up.
okay.
All right, what are you going to see next week, and are you excited about it?
Oh, good question. Okay. Also, we never really talked about the stuff we watched, so let's just do that for like 60 seconds. Just like list the stuff that you've watched, movies or good movie quality TV.
Okay, breakdown. All right, we already talked about Paradox. Talked about that. No need to get further on that. I watched the 1517 to Paris.
And thoughts, good or bad?
One of the worst movies I've seen, not because of the story. The story should have been amazing. The true to life
5-minute story.
Yeah. Oh, and the only good part of the movie was in the train when the actual thing happened, the heroism. Before that, the regular guys living regular lives, noble people. Just, you know what? I don't want to know what happens. And that sounds terrible, but I don't want to know what happens in your regular life. You're on you're on a vacation with your friends in Europe. Your friends, your loved ones will care about what you do. What I'm the most happy about is what you did on the train. Now, like I said, with the movie, this is the quickest review I'll ever give. They use the actual heroes as the actors, and as a movie, that doesn't work.
Okay. Yeah,
And-
let's say that for a talking point next time to go in depth.
And it was Clint Eastwood, and I thought he made good movies until I saw this.
Yeah, I love his movie Changeling. I think it's an amazing movie. But okay, so anything besides 15 to 17, Yuma Train to Paris.
Nope, that's the only thing I saw, that and Paradox, but I'm looking forward to Black Panther next week.
Yes. Have you reserved your tickets?
Not yet.
I
I'm
have.
probably screwed over because of that, but
Also, because we have 0 listeners, we'll probably talk about next week how you can use the Movie Pass to pre-reserve tickets online.
you can.
It's a workaround we found on Reddit. So I feel like we're not big enough to where people will find it and get it closed out. So it's a cool thing for you guys to come back next week. Stuff that I saw this week. I saw Tanya. I keep calling it Tonya because it's Tonya, but I saw Tanya. I honestly loved it. It was exactly what I expected. It had the exact same tone as the trailer, but they didn't give everything away. I mean, there was some things that I had seen, but I would say the trailer only gave away maybe 25-30% of the movie. So the whole movie you're expecting and new things, and you're still getting it. Story was amazing, hilarious, absolutely hilarious, but also very heartfelt because these were like the perceptions and opinions of the original people interviewed for this biography. Absolutely great movie. I think all Americans should watch this because it's a great insight into American culture and to American inequality and to hopes and dreams, especially during this Olympic season. So,
Yeah. And hey, I'll just add on that. Great way to do an adaptation of a real life story into a movie compared to other movies.
yes. And I mean, I thought it was great. So I recently saw I, Tanya. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I gave it an A- because it did exactly what it meant to in a very good way. We'll also kind of go in, I think, next time into a breakdown of how we're going to analyze and rank and, review our movies. And we'll probably put that up online so you guys can see. Because we feel like the 2 out of 3 stars, or, the 5-star ranking isn't helpful because you don't know if 2 stars is bad or 3 stars is good or 4 is great because nothing's ever 5. So we're going to do it on a scale that everybody understands and knows.
Exactly, because you're regular people, so are we.
Everybody's
going to relate.
Everybody's had grades. So we're going to give a movie a grade out of 100. And to make it easy, when we tweet about stuff, we'll kind of give it like a letter grade to reference. But to be quantifiable, we will have specific number grades for a movie. So, I always say sometimes it's between a B+ and an A- because that's like a range of 5%.
Yeah.
And sometimes I want it to be touching like right at the mark of a B+ and an A-. So like if I say something was like an 89, you know that it was almost an A. Almost, but there was just one thing that kept it from being an A. So, we'll be able to go and talk about that because if a movie's a 73, it's not a great movie, but it's not a bad movie. If it's like an 86, it's a pretty good movie. If it's a 96, you're like, holy crap, I got to see this movie.
Yeah.
If it's like a 52, you know that you don't want to see this movie.
Yeah.
But if you say 3 out of 5 stars, or 2.5 out of 5 stars,
Yeah,
like
it's too vague.
It's too vague. It's too much math. So yeah, we'll be doing our movie ranking out of 100s with some letter grades, but generally trying to give it a specific percentage score out of 100.
Yeah. Sounds
So
good.
yeah, and the only other thing that I watched that I had thoroughly enjoyed is Altered Carbon on Netflix.
Okay, I saw because that the trailer or whatever popped up right after I finished Paradox.
Yeah,
And I've been seeing trailers of it, and it looks like a cool, weird Blade Runner-ish type of.
exactly. I love sci-fi stuff. Like, I watch anything sci-fi.
Yeah.
Because I have such a sweet spot for sci-fi, I'll give a lot of leeway with graphics or with story because they're trying to be creative.
Yeah.
This one is insane. Like, I give it an A. Now, I mean, I'll have to figure out my specific number, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, it is very good. Now, heads up, there's lots of nudity, like Game of Thrones quality nudity in every episode. But I read an article that was talking about the director's purpose of that was for this sci-fi genre. It's about how bodies have just become a commodity and a disposable resource that people can transfer their consciousnesses to different bodies.
So it's used as a story point.
It's used as almost world building. It's used as world building. Because while it is graphic, it's not offensively graphic. It's just unnecessarily scenes where people are naked, where they could be doing different things. And it's to point out that people don't care about it anymore. It's to kind of put on the perceptions of this is a future society where they don't care about their bodies anymore because it's no longer theirs. It's just an item that they own. Kind of like a car.
Europe.
Well, sure.
Just kidding. I don't want to. Just kidding.
So I mean, it's very very interesting. But as far as the acting is great, and the way that the script's written, I mean, I feel like they're already going into content that normally would be on season 2 and like episode 8. So the production quality absolutely amazing. The fact this is a TV show, it's insane. It's essentially like Game of Thrones mixed with Blade Runner, mixed with Total Recall and The Matrix, and a very very high quality, high budget production that doesn't cop out on anything.
Yeah, Netflix has tons of money too.
I mean, it's so good. So I personally highly recommend Altered Carbon if you are not uncomfortable with gratuitous nudity. But the storyline's amazing. I mean, I was drawn in. Like I was definitely binging to needing to know what happened.
Yeah.
And there's so many twists and turns. It's similar to The Expanse on sci-fi, but with a Netflix quality budget and a Netflix quality freedom.
Nice.
So yeah, those are the 2 things that I watched this week. So now transitioning into upcoming for the next week. What are you hoping to watch?
Ooh. Other than Black Panther, I think I'm reserved for Black Panther, and I'll have to look. I still want to see Maze Runner: The Death Cure.
Okay.
I want to see. I haven't seen the first 2. I just want to see.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains why you want to see the third then.
Exactly. I want to see what there is to.
First one's not bad. Second one, I severely disliked.
Which is what I heard from a lot of people.
Yeah, but it's based off the book, so I haven't read the book, so I'm not sure.
And things are almost always better. In
Almost
books.
always better in books, yeah.
I read the Twilight series because they were good books.
Hey, I've heard that they're very easy reads.
Yeah, I hate the movies, but I got AR points in school for them. So
I respect that. All right, so Black Panther and Maze Runner.
yeah,
Okay. I know for me, definitely Black Panther. I know my roommates and I want to use the movie pass to go see 3 Billboards past Ebbings, Missouri.
Is that still in theaters?
It is still in theaters. Most of the Academy Award movies are still in theaters until the Oscars, which I think are coming up in 2 weeks.
Yes.
So my goal is to hopefully see all of the Oscar Best Picture nominees before the Oscars come out, because with MoviePass, it's quote unquote free for me. So I want to take that opportunity and see these amazing movies because, again, like we talked about, good storytelling.
Yeah.
And I feel like I would be remiss to constantly harp on the need for good storytelling without supporting movies that do have good storytelling.
Yeah, and the thing with MoviePass is, I don't know about you, I'm starting to see movies that I never would have seen before because the value of it. And I feel like it's good study, at least for us.
Yeah.
We're talking about movies because we love them, and so I'm okay watching a terrible movie every once in a while on accident.
Yeah.
Because it helps me understand what a better movie is.
Yeah. You can't have good movies without bad movies. Otherwise, they'd all be the same.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's a pretty good place to wrap up.
Yep. All right. People, thanks for listening. If you are, we love you.
We're very grateful. Thank you for listening. And definitely give us your feedback because we want this to be the most enjoyable experience for any movie listener. So thank you for tuning in to the Cinemacast with Cole and Alex.
Yep.
And we will be back with you shortly for our weekly podcast. And we'll probably try and add on before and after this some cool non-licensed, non-copyrighted, generic music that we can eventually tune into something that's our own.
Yep. All right, people. Cinemacast out.